At some point, you stopped being the person who showed up for everyone and started being the person who just didn't. No big fallout, no explanation. You just got a little quiet, more selective, and honestly, more at peace. But there's a voice in the back of your head that keeps asking if something is wrong with you. There isn't. What's happening has 5 specific psychological explanations, and every single one of them traces back to the exact life you've lived. Stay with this. Nobody warned you this was coming. Nobody sat you down and said, look, there's a point in your life where the social energy just stops refilling the way it used to, where a full weekend alone starts to feel like a reward instead of a punishment, where you look at the invite on the refrigerator and think, I'm good, I'm fine where I'm at. And then the guilt kicks in, that quiet voice that says you've changed, that something's wrong with you, that the person you used to be, the one who made the plans, who kept the group together, who showed up no matter what, that person wouldn't recognize you now. Here's the thing, that voice is wrong. What's happening to you is real, it's documented, and it runs through an entire generation of Americans who spent their best decades building lives around other people's needs. These are 5 psychological reasons why you're avoiding people more as you get older, and every one of them makes complete sense. Reason 1. Your tolerance for low-quality interaction has quietly collapsed. You remember sitting through it. The coworker who retold the same story at every Friday lunch, the relative who dominated every Thanksgiving table and made sure everyone knew it, the neighbor who knocked unannounced, came inside, sat down, and somehow it was 2 hours later. You stayed, you nodded, you refilled the coffee, you laughed at the parts that weren't funny. You weren't weak, you were trained. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, social performance was just a price of belonging. You didn't leave early. You didn't say you needed space. Nobody did. At the dinner table, at Sunday church, at every backyard cookout on the block, you showed up, you participated, and you kept the peace. Because that's what you did. And here's what that did to you over time. You got so good at performing availability that even you couldn't tell the difference between wanting to be somewhere and just being there. You smiled so many times at things that weren't funny. You sat through so many conversations that had nothing to do with you. You gave entire evenings to people who wouldn't have noticed if you'd left an hour earlier. But something accumulates over 40 years of that. And one day, you're sitting across from someone who's been talking about themselves for an hour and hasn't asked you a single question, and something inside just goes, I'm tired of that. I don't have the energy for it. Not anymore. 1 hour with the wrong person now costs you the entire afternoon. That's not something you used to feel at 35. It's different now. And once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. Reason 2. Every hour started to feel like something you could actually lose. You remember when a Saturday had no weight to it, when you could drive around for 2 hours going nowhere in particular, sit on the phone talking about nothing until midnight, waste a whole Sunday and not feel a thing. Time just kept showing up. You never had to think about it. I don't know, man. Somewhere in your 50s, that changed. An afternoon became something specific. An evening started to mean something. And when time starts to feel that finite, the people you spend it on start to be evaluated differently. Not harshly, honestly.
Was really just labor.
You're not driving 40 minutes to a dinner where you'll spend 3 hours being drained and leave feeling worse than when you arrived. You're not flying home for an obligation that leaves you hollow. I've done the whole thing. I've paid my dues. That chapter's closed. What's actually happening has a name. Psychologists call it socio-emotional selectivity, the way older adults naturally narrow their social world toward what feels meaningful and away from what doesn't. But you don't need the name. You felt it. You wake up one day and the math just changed. The people who fill you up become precious. The ones who don't, you just stop making the effort, and you stop feeling guilty about it. Reason 3. You got faster at reading people, and you can't turn that off. Here's the thing nobody tells you. You get quicker at people as you get older. Not meaner, faster. After 30 years of workplaces and friendships and family systems, after all the people you trusted who turned out to be something else, after all the one-sided relationships you carried longer than you should have, you develop a kind of pattern recognition. One conversation can tell you now what used to take months. You notice who asks about you and who just waits for their turn. You hear what's underneath what someone is saying. You see the dynamic in the first 5 minutes. And honestly, I'm just saying, that's exhausting if you're still trying to play the old social game on top of it. Because the old game required you to ignore what you were seeing, to extend the benefit of the doubt indefinitely, to keep showing up for people who weren't showing up for you because you'd been taught that's what loyalty looked like. You were good at that game. Most people your age were. But you can't unsee it now. So instead of confronting it, instead of making it awkward, you just quietly step back. No announcement, no explanation. You let the gap grow naturally. I've outgrown it. I'm past that. I've seen how that plays out right here in America, and I'm not doing that again. Reason 4. You were the glue for decades, and you finally ran out of it. Don't pretend you don't know exactly what this means. You were the one who remembered the birthdays, who made the call to check in, who organized the reunion nobody else thought to plan, who smoothed it over when 2 people in the group weren't speaking, who kept the whole thing intact through sheer quiet effort year after year, without anyone asking you to and without anyone noticing you were doing it. You became that person early. Maybe you were the oldest kid in a house that needed managing. Maybe you learned young that keeping everyone comfortable was how you stayed safe. Maybe nobody assigned you the role, you just saw that it needed doing and you did it, the way you did most things. And then one day, no big moment, no blow-up, you just stopped initiating, stopped sending the first text, stopped organizing the dinner, stopped carrying the friendship on your back. And the silence that followed told you everything. Some of those relationships just stopped. No conflict, no fallout. They just went quiet because the only thing holding them together was you. You were the infrastructure. The moment you stepped back, there was nothing underneath. Let me tell you what that moment actually feels like, because most people who've been through it describe it the same way. It's not relief right away. First, it's disbelief. You think surely they'll reach out. Surely someone notices. You wait, a week goes by, a month, and then you realize they were comfortable letting you do it all, every single time, and they never once thought about what it cost you. That part nobody talks about. Not with anger. I'm not bitter. I'm clear. But with a kind of quiet reckoning. You realize some of what you called friendship was really just labor, and you've had enough of that. You don't owe anybody that. Not anymore. Reason 5. The world that built your social life doesn't exist anymore, and nothing replaced it actually. You know what's interesting? You didn't choose to become less social. The world that made you social just disappeared. Think about where you grew up, the neighborhood where somebody's mother always knew where you were, where the back door was open and kids moved between houses like it was one continuous property, where Friday night meant whoever showed up showed up. No invitations, no texts, no one staring at a screen. The block itself was the social life. It ran itself. You just lived inside it. At work, for most of your career, you were physically present with the same people every single day. You knew who took their lunch at noon and who brought leftovers in a container from home and who had a bing about the coffee being made fresh. You knew who was going through something hard without them ever having to say it. Those relationships didn't require effort. They built themselves around proximity, around showing up in the same room day after day for years. Then one day that was all gone. The neighborhood aged out, the office restructured or went remote, or just changed beyond recognition. The kids grew up and the house got quiet, and the social density that used to surround you, that ambient, built-in contact you could count on without engineering it, stopped being available. And what came after requires something completely different. Group chats, scheduled calls, platforms that promise connection and deliver something thinner. You know what I'm talking about. You've tried it, and it's fine, it works, but it never quite fits the same way, because it wasn't built for how you learned to connect. It was built for a generation that grew up differently, a generation that never knew what it felt like to just show up at someone's door on a Saturday afternoon and have that be completely normal. The quiet that followed all that loss isn't emptiness. It's the space between the world that shaped you and the one asking you to start over. And you know what? At this point in your life, I'm not starting over again. I'm not chasing that. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I actually like the quiet. There's a whole generation of Americans right now, people who learned early that your value lived in your availability, who gave their best hours to workplaces and households and social obligations for 40 years, moving through this same shift, all of them quietly, most of them carrying some version of that guilt. But you start noticing, the older you get, that the guilt fades, not all at once, gradually. And the people who stuck around, the ones still in your life after you stopped performing, stopped initiating, stopped making it easy, those people mean something different now. You didn't collect them, you kept them, and there's a difference. What's underneath it all, once the guilt clears, is something that was probably always there, waiting for you to have enough life behind you to finally feel it. It's not anger, it's not fear, it's peace. And the only reason it took this long is that you were too busy holding everyone else together to notice it was available to you. By the way, I'm just curious, did one of those 5 reasons describe your life a little too perfectly? Maybe it was the glue part, or just that sudden realization that your time is finally yours. Drop a comment below and let me know which one resonated with you. I read every single one, and honestly, hearing your stories is why I make these videos. If this gave you a bit of peace or made you feel a little less alone in the quiet, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community here for those of us who are finally choosing quality over quantity. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.